Imagine stumbling upon one of the absolute largest oil reserves on the planet. Now, history usually tells us that when a country hits a jackpot like that, sure, they get richer, but they almost always become deeply corrupt, profoundly unequal, and highly unstable. It's almost a given. Yet, Norway did something that pretty much no other nation has ever managed to pull off. They completely rewrote the playbook. Welcome to this explainer where we're going to dive right into the fascinating story of how this small Scandinavian nation totally transformed its destiny.
Okay, let's just start right off the bat with this number. $1.8 trillion. That is the current size of Norway's national wealth fund. I mean, it's a number so incredibly massive, it's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially when you remember we're talking about a country with a pretty small population. This isn't just a bunch of cash sitting in a giant vault somewhere. It is a massive, active, global engine of wealth.
So that brings us to the real core question for today. How exactly did a small nation pull off what is basically history's greatest financial success? Because like we said, when most countries strike oil, that blessing quickly turns into a massive curse. But Norway, they did the exact opposite. They didn't just get lucky. They made some highly calculated, incredibly smart decisions.
Part 1. Norway before the oil. To truly appreciate what Norway pulled off here, we kind of have to travel back in time. Because before the 1960s, Norway was a totally different place. We're talking about a harsh, freezing climate, a really modest fishing economy, farming, and just widespread poverty. Honestly, it was so tough that huge numbers of Norwegians packed up and emigrated just to find a better life. They were resilient, for sure, but they were poor. Contrast that night-and-day difference with modern Norway today, where you have world-class public services, immense wealth, and a totally thriving population.
Part 2. The North Sea discovery.
So, the spark for this entire transformation started in the early 1960s, when companies first started exploring the icy waters of the North Sea. At first, total skepticism. Industry experts firmly believed there was absolutely nothing of value down there. But then, in 1969, boom, a massive oil field is discovered. And I mean massive. It sent literal shockwaves through the global energy market, and by the 1970s, international interest had absolutely peaked, with companies rushing to the coast. The oil was real, and there was a lot of it.
Part 3. Avoiding the resource curse. Now, finding all that oil is usually a massive trap for developing nations. There's this economic concept known as the resource curse. It happens when a country finds abundant natural resources, like oil or diamonds. But instead of everyone thriving, the country actually experiences worse economic development, political instability, and massive inequality. The money flows in, corruption spikes, and everyday citizens literally see none of the benefits. So Norway had to figure out, very quickly, how to avoid this global trap.
And what's brilliant is they chose a completely different path. They built up incredibly strong defenses against that curse by leaning heavily into deeply rooted democratic principles. We're talking transparent government, fiercely independent courts, democratic decision-making, and long-term planning. They made a crucial decision right then and there. This oil belongs to the Norwegian people, the whole country, not just a handful of politicians or foreign corporations.
Part 4. The $1.8 trillion wealth fund.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of just blowing the oil money immediately like most places do, they created a masterstroke system designed to benefit generations that weren't even born yet. First, the oil is extracted. Second, the profits go directly to the government. But here is the major divergence. Step 3. Instead of spending that cash on flashy short-term political promises, that money is invested all over the globe based on strict ethical rules. Finally, in Step 4, only the returns from those investments are spent to fund public services. They basically turned raw crude oil into a self-sustaining money machine.
Just to give you a real sense of scale here, this fund owns pieces of thousands of companies all around the world. Actually, if you own any stocks in your own portfolio, there's a really good chance the Norwegian government is investing right alongside you. But they aren't just hoarding cash, they are actively investing globally, and they outright refuse to fund certain industries based on strict internal rules. If a company violates those ethical guidelines, the fund pulls its money, no questions asked. It's a colossal financial force, but it operates with a very clear moral compass.
Part 5. The modern Norwegian reality.
So what does this macroeconomic strategy actually buy the average person? By investing the principal and only ever spending the returns, this wealth fund directly buys incredible quality of life benefits for everyday citizens. We are talking world-class healthcare, entirely free education, super advanced roads and public transit, incredibly generous maternity leave, and just an unmatched work-life balance.
They took raw wealth and translated it into a highly functioning society where public services actively support a fantastic life for everyone.
Part 6.
Problems Norway still faces.
Now, to keep this explainer perfectly balanced, we have to look objectively at reality, because it's not a flawless utopia. Despite all this immense wealth, Norway is still wrestling with some very serious global issues today. They have an aging population putting strain on resources, plus they are facing a massive, fascinating paradox. They are a highly progressive nation pushing hard for climate change action, yet their entire financial safety net is literally built on oil. Transitioning to renewable energy while trying to maintain that wealth is a super delicate balancing act. Throw in rising housing prices and the desperate need to diversify their economy, and you quickly realize that having all the money in the world doesn't automatically solve every single problem.
Part 7. What other countries can learn? So, looking past just the oil itself, what's the real takeaway? Is Norway's miracle actually a blueprint that the rest of the world could copy? Well, the core lesson isn't actually about finding oil at all. It's about the choices you make when you find it. Norway's whole model is built on rigorous economic planning, education, saving, and putting future generations first. Compare that with the common trap we see everywhere else: rapid spending, chasing short-term political wins, and immediate consumption. Norway succeeded because they made the incredibly difficult political choice to prioritize long-term stability over instant gratification.
I want to leave you with this really powerful summary straight from our source material that I think just hits the nail on the head. Norway didn't become rich simply because it discovered oil. It became rich because it chose patience over politics, investment over consumption, and the future over the present. In a world where natural wealth often becomes a curse, Norway proved that good decisions can matter more than good luck.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It's a profound question to ask yourself about your own government and your own local leaders. Could a model that actually prioritizes patience, deep transparency, and the future over the present actually work where you live? I really hope this explainer has given you a completely fresh perspective on how a nation can truly build and sustain real wealth. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into Norway's incredible journey, and I'll catch you on the next one.